Hey church, this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for some more time right here in God's Word. I want to give a quick shout out today to Gonzalo, Correa, and Bajema, who are both from different parts of the country, but faithfully comment on our website. In short, I think they do it just to encourage me and to let me know that they're listening and trying to apply the truths of God on a daily basis. Phyllis, thank you for getting into the gym of faith with me. I love you. Today we're going to be in Nehemiah chapter 2. I'm going to read verses 19 through 20. It reads, "But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant and Geshem the Arab heard of it, they jeered at us and despised us and said, 'What is this thing that you're doing? Are you rebelling against the king?' Then I," that's Nehemiah, "replied to them, 'The God of heaven will make us prosper, and we his servants will arise and build, but you have no portion or right or claim in Jerusalem.'" Now, church, these men know that Nehemiah has credentials from King Artaxerxes. What they're trying to do in this situation is dishearten the leader and intimidate the people who are doing the building. That's because ridicule is their tool. And they knew dropping in accusations of rebellion would cause conflict among the workers. And here's why. Many years before this, when Zerubbabel was actually rebuilding the temple, he also attempted to rebuild the walls, like Nehemiah is right now. But during his time, there was a similar uprising against him, a group of protestors who discouraged them, intimidated them, and even bribed people to frustrate the whole process. Eventually, they persuaded King Artaxerxes that if Zerubbabel continued to build the wall, then the Jews would separate themselves from the empire's tax and financial structure and obligations. You can go back and read about that in Ezra chapter 4. And sure enough, King Artaxerxes ordered a decree telling them to stop building the wall. Now, I will say this. The weapon of ridicule always has an effect. It always does. If it didn't work, then people wouldn't use it. But it does work, so they do. This is precisely why we hear that Jewish students and Jewish organizations at some of the top universities in our country are actually fearing for their life because ridicule works. Now, what is it? Ridicule is just simply a verbal form of shame, criticism, or mockery that is often contemptuous. It's used to make a person or a project appear foolish or absurd. It can be used as a social tool, enforcing or reinforcing social norms or maintaining a particular order or hierarchy in a good way. But sometimes the intent is greater. It's intended to have an emotional impact that can be hurtful, that can be damaging, mainly when it targets personal attributes or beliefs. It can lead to feelings of embarrassment, shame, low self-esteem, or even fear, which is what's trying to be elicited in this situation here. This means that sometimes ridicule can be intended to be lighthearted, but sometimes, or more often than not, it's used as a weapon to belittle and oppress people and groups. Now, in this situation, ridicule is being used in power dynamics with that strong historical context of the past. So these three men use their positions of authority and power as psyops, as psychological operations against these people to assert their dominance. They hope that this is going to generate a narrative among the people and make them weak in spirit as these men and forces surround them. Remember, Sanballat is from Samaria to the north, Tobiah is from Ammon to the east, and Geshem is from Arabia to the south. They're all around them deploying psyops. So how does Nehemiah respond to this ridicule? Well, with three simple responses in one simple sentence. He says this to them. Number one, he is focused firmly on God's sovereign authority, not man's authority, be it the king or the governors that surround them at this moment. Number two, he redirected the shame of ridicule back to the actual emotion needed to accomplish God's work and mission. And number three, he publicly denied the ridicule of the opposition, that they had some sort of stake in God's authority or in his work. Now, I'm going to say this to you guys. I really believe it takes a remarkable leader to be able to do something like this. One who is resolute in character, not easily intimidated by opposition, and deeply proud of his God-given calling. This is no ordinary leader in this moment that we see and we read about. And this is why I think there are so few spiritual leaders like this today. They are not resolved in their character. They are easily intimidated by people, and they are not really sure of their call, work, and mission. But every once in a while, a few rise up. And when they do, they inspire us. And that's what Nehemiah is doing here. He's inspiring us. So if you want to be this leader, well, you need to get into the gym and do some training by doing 4 very simple things. Number 1, you need to learn how to recognize ridicule and call it out when you see it. Number 2, when you respond to it, you got to respond with godly action. Number 3, you have to learn how to redirect all those negative emotions with spiritual resolve. And number 4, you have to learn how to refute false claims with biblical truth. If you can learn how to do these 4 things in small ways in the gym of faith, then one day when you encounter greater ridicule and conflict, you'll be able to do what Nehemiah did here with these 3 men who tried to intimidate him. You'll be able to stand tall in regard to your faith for God. I love you guys. I pray this has blessed you. If it has, share it with someone else. And I'll see you right back here again tomorrow.